In our main event, rising Russian middleweight prospect Shamil Katayev faces the toughest and most experienced opponent of his young career as he battles his countryman Gracha Margarian. It is Fight and Win, presented by Shamo Boxing, brought to you live right here on the Salida Promotions YouTube channel. Hello everyone, I'm your host Corey Erdman, pleased to be calling the action for you tonight or today. For those of you watching along with us in North America, you're going to get a look at a whole host of rising Russian fighters, including Shamil Katayev, whom we'll see in our main event, but many are no doubt tuning in to see the return of Firuza Sharipova, the Kazakh women's lightweight star who will be taking another gradual step up in opposition tonight against Sara Marjanovic. That'll be up a little earlier in the night, right after our super middleweight opener between Artem Ivanov and Artish Lobsan, which will be coming up in just a few moments. 6 fights total, 3 in the super middleweight division, and then concluding in the middleweight division in our main event with Shamil Katayev and Gracha Margarian. The action will be kicking off in just a few moments here live on the Salida Promotions YouTube channel.
Добрый вечер, уважаемые дамы и господа. Мы приветствуем вас из Москвы. Сегодня здесь проходит вечер профессионального бокса от Shamo Boxing Promotions. Дерись и побеждай. Event 55. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You are welcome in Moscow. The professional boxing evening. Shamo Boxing Promotions. Event number 55. Супервайзер сегодняшнего вечера, руководитель департамента профессионального бокса Федерации бокса России Олег Агеев. Врач у ринга Юлия Авенариус. Судья-хронометрист Дмитрий Антонов. Главным боем сегодняшнего вечера будет поединок за вакантный пояс чемпиона WBA Азия в среднем весе. Но и также предварять его будут масса интереснейших конкурентных поединков. Итак, мы продолжаем. Наш следующий поединок. 8 раундов. Второй средний вес. Рефери в ринге Семен Стахеев. Боковые судьи Александр Калинкин, Антон Шарков, Михаил Куликов. Встречаем участников. В синий угол ринга, to the blue corner, из Республики Тыва, Artish Lobsan.
And ready to kick things off here in the super middleweight division. This is Artish Lobsan, who enters this bout with a record of 2-1-1. He's 25 years of age. Fighting out of Kyzyl, Russia. He was last in action just a couple of months ago on July 3rd. Took a massive step up in a regional WBA title fight for the interim WBA Asian super middleweight title and was stopped in the 7th round by Pavel Silyagin. Took quite a serious beating in that fight. His nose was bloodied, both eyes swollen, was eventually stopped in the 7th round on a body shot. So we'll see if he's had time to recover from what was a really physical fight for Lobsan, whether he could put it all together here tonight.
Из Москвы Артем Иванов.
And here's his opponent, Artem Ivanov. 3-1-1 from right here in Moscow, Russia. We last saw him just a little over a month ago on September 4th on another Shamo boxing event right here at the USC Soviet Wings. He fought to a draw with Vasif Mamedov, who entered that fight with a record of 1-4-1. So looking for an improvement here tonight. Let's send it down to our ring announcer for the official introductions.
Вес 76 килограммов 700 граммов. Профессиональный рекорд: 4 боя, 2 победы, 1 нокаутом, 1 поражение и в одном бою зафиксирована ничья. Республика Тыва, Артыш Лапсан. Красный угол ринга, боксер 26 лет, рост 181 сантиметр, вес 77 килограммов ровно. Провел 5 профессиональных боев, одержал в них 3 победы, 1 нокаутом, потерпел 1 поражение и в одном бою зафиксирована ничья. Из Москвы Артем Иванов. Рефери в ринге Семен Стахеев. Первый раунд.
Round one as we kick things off here on the 55th event that Shamo Boxing Promotions has presented. We're delighted to bring it to you live and free here on the Salida Promotions YouTube channel. This is super middleweight action. That is Artem Ivanov in the black and red trunks. And his opponent, Artish Lobsan, in the blue trunks trimmed in black. This is an interesting little piece of matchmaking as well. Both of these guys with fairly similar records. Again, Lobsan at 2-1-1 and Ivanov at 3-1-1. Lobsan has a loss that looks worse on his record, given that he was stopped last time out. However, Silyagin is a tougher opponent than anyone Ivanov has faced, and the fact that it was a scheduled 10-rounder kind of attests to that as well. We mentioned that Ivanov fought to a draw with a fighter with an upside-down record, and Vasif Mamedov last time out. He was 1-4-1 coming into that fight, so maybe not the best sign, but again, a lot of fighters fighting for the first time during the worldwide pandemic can be a little bit rusty. And if Lobsan is rusty, he's going to have to watch out for that overhand right from Ivanov. Looked like it grazed Lobsan a moment ago. Lobsan with a very upright stance. And one of his issues against Silyagin was his propensity to kind of lean back, trying to get out of the way of punches and leaving his chin exposed. No doubt a technical flaw he'll look to correct. Maybe a little bit easier here tonight as he's looking down at his opponent. And perhaps Ivanov has that scouted because he's looking for the big overhand right. And if you have an opponent who's dangling his chin out there, no better shot to hit him with. Ivanov, the busier of the two fighters thus far. Pecking away with that jab, hooks off the jab a moment ago. Final 20 seconds of the opening frame. This one's scheduled for 8. Good sneaky right hand there from Lobsan, and another one. Good little body work in response from Ivanov, and altogether, competitive opening round.
Присутствуют представители Роспотребнадзора. Все в зале должны находиться в масках. Без масок могут быть только боксеры в ринге. Прошу всех зрителей надеть маски или покинуть помещение.
We'll look back at some of the action from round one. This was kind of the tail of this opening round. It was Ivanov doing some good body work, kind of going for it all with those big overhand rights. But Lobson countering well with that right hand. Landed a couple clean shots right before the bell. And I would say an argument could be made for either fighter in that opening round.
Секунданты. Второй раунд.
Round two begins. Artem Ivanov and Artish Lobson getting things started for us here on the Salida Promotions YouTube channel. Ooh, good combination there from Lobson. That might have rattled Ivanov, who is in retreat for the first time. Good combination put together by Artish Lobson. Lobson comes over the top again with another right hand. Ivanov backs up. You would think that Lobson, stylistically, given his size and his dimensional advantages over Ivanov here, could kind of keep him at bay with the jab, but that's just not the kind of fighter he is. You see, he prefers to let his opponent come to him and counter with that right hand. There it is again. There's a good jab from Lobson. It's hard to criticize the strategy of Lobson, though, thus far. This has been a clear second round for him. Hurt his opponent for the first time. Ivanov eats another right hand there from Lobson. We've already seen him hurt in this second round. But he is committed to trying to get to the body and to try to bring that overhand right. Scored again, but he smothers himself on the inside. Final 10 seconds of what has been an excellent round for the 25-year-old Artish Lobson. Here's some of the good work from Lobson in that round. There was that counter right hand. That was the one that hurt Ivanov for the first time, and that was the first backward step we had seen him take in this fight. And from then on, Lobson had found something that worked. He lands that right hand twice more right there. We'll see if Ivanov is capable of making any adjustments here as the third round is set to begin. Another counter right hand there from Lobsang. That seemed to affect Ivanov once again. Now Lobsang looking a little more sure of himself offensively, starting to initiate with his jab a little bit more. It was more of a rangefinder or kind of a defensive technique before. Lobsang, after rattling Ivanov a couple of times, starting to feel it a little bit. Good body shot there from Lobsang as well. As we mentioned during Lobsang's ring walk, there had to be a real concern about how he would fare here tonight just based on the amount of punishment he took last time out against Pavel Solyagin. A really physical fight that, you know, frankly was one-sided, not in his favor. It was bloodied and swollen and ultimately stopped with a body shot, but it was more of a mercy stoppage on the part of Dmitry Boldriev in that fight. And really just a little more than 3 months to recover from that. Had to wonder what he was going to look like here tonight, but positive signs all around. The concern with Ivanov is that his slip-ups have come against very limited opposition. And we referenced the draw against the 1-4-1, Vasif Mamedov, but he also lost his pro debut against Vitaly Mikhailov. That was back in April of 2019. Right-hand shot there from Lobsang. A quieter round, no doubt. You'd have to say another round in the bank for Lobsang, despite some of the minor adjustments that Ivanov was able to make. Another right hand there from Lobsang. That was the one that backed Ivanov up early on in the round. For the rest of the round, Ivanov tried to get a little bit lower, really started to focus on the body, tried to basically duck under those counter right hands. You can't get out of the way of all of them. There you see another one landing. Knocks Ivanov back.
Секунданты. Четвертый раунд.
Round 4 underway of our opener. Of course, still to come, our main event. The WBA Asia middleweight title, Shamil Katayev and Gracha Margarian. Katayev, a rising prospect in the middleweight division, taking on likely his best and most experienced opponent in Margarian tonight. Coming up next, if you're just tuning in, one that many people are tuning in for. We have some women's action. It is Firuza Sharapova, the Kazakh lightweight contender, who's received plenty of media attention throughout her career, is back in action for the second time in 2020. She takes on the veteran, Sarah Marjanovic. Ivanov just trying to up the work rate here. You kind of know what you're going to get out of Ivanov. He wants to walk you down. He's going to come in through the front door. And I don't know how many adjustments he can necessarily make. In the third round, he tried to change levels a little bit, tried to get a little bit lower. But ultimately, the adjustment he can make is try and throw more punches. Try harder to outwork you. And again, we go back to the possibly compromised health of Artish Lobsan after that brutal fight just a couple of months ago. We're only in round 4. There haven't been any knockdowns. The first round was arguable for both Ivanov and Lobsan. So perhaps just some steady pressure. If he can start getting to Lobsan a little bit more often, perhaps there is some hope for Ivanov to pick up a decision, but he'll have to remain consistently on his opponent's chest if he wants to make that happen, and that's a good sign right there. One of the better looking sequences of the fight for Artem Ivanov. A noticeable improvement in this round in terms of Ivanov's success. He still took a couple of those right hands from Lobsan, but in previous rounds, those were shots that were knocking him back. His balance was off. This round, kept pressing forward. This is that little flurry right at the bell. Maybe not landing flush, but definitely putting Lobsan under duress for good portions of that round. This is round 5. See if Ivanov can keep the momentum going. Good right hand to the body there. Lobsan looks for a counter uppercut. First time I've seen him use that shot in this fight. He was hurt badly with an uppercut in his last fight against Ilyagin. Could definitely be a weapon for him there. He shot that uppercut once again, brings it once more. That must have been the initiative in Lobsan's corner. You have an opponent that's coming at you, tucking his head down, trying to get to the body. Now Ivanov maybe sensing it, giving him a little bit of head movement from the outside. Trying to answer back because he ate a couple of those shots flush. You can see some reddening on the face of Ivanov beginning. Another uppercut there from Lobsan. Another one. Good bounce back round. Good tactical adjustment from Artish Lobsan. He is just making Ivanov try to find an answer for that uppercut. Ivanov again just trying to make it rough, trying to out-hustle Lobsan. He's got quite the hole to dig himself out of in round 5 here because it has been dominant for the first 2.5 minutes for Lobsang. Five punches there unanswered. Thrown by Lobsang, not all of them landed. But Ivanov's MO has to be volume, and in this round, he definitely outthrew and outlanded his pressure-fighting opponent. See some of the work from Lobsang in round 5. There's that uppercut. He threw it consistently throughout the round. Ivanov got out of the way of that particular shot, but those were in the minority. Still finding his little moments, particularly along the ropes, when Lobsang will allow him there.
Секунданты. Шестой раунд.
Just never know as round 6 begins for a fighter like Lobsang, who definitely has his defensive lapses. We saw it in his last fight. And a hard-charging opponent like Ivanov, who's throwing some home run shots. Uppercut from Lobsang. You know, about 20 seconds ago, there was a sequence there where Ivanov basically let Lobsang come forward. Lobsang was moving forward. He had opportunities to throw punches, and he just didn't do it moving forward. And sometimes you see that with fighters who are just not comfortable being the aggressor. And oftentimes you'll hear that cliche, well, if you're fighting a counterpuncher, make them lead. And sometimes that is true. We just saw it with Lobsang, who just seems a little bit out of sorts when he's the one moving forward. There he landed a couple of shots, but he looks far more comfortable off the back foot and letting his opponent come towards him. Good counter shot there from Lobsang, who's fighting out of a southpaw stance temporarily. Another uppercut sneaks in there. Now, Ivanov would be well served. Throw more shots like that one. That one sailed over the top, but straighter shots as he's coming in. He's throwing hard and he's throwing a lot, but a lot of these shots are kind of wide looping hooks, and Lobsang is able to catch them on his arms. He's able to shoot up the middle with that uppercut. Just leaving himself vulnerable even when he's the one initiating the action. There's a good straight shot to the body. That's better work from Ivanov. Ivanov's landed a couple of hard body shots in this round, so some signs of encouragement for him as we wrap up round 6. Back at some action from round 6. Both fighters getting some good crisp shots through in that sequence. See Lobsang fighting out of the southpaw stance for about 30 seconds in that round. We'll see if maybe those body shots that Ivanov landed at the end of round 6, maybe they'll carry over into these final 2 rounds of our opening contest. Live on the Solita Promotions YouTube channel. Corey Erdman here with you, calling all the action. Bringing 6 fights your way, concluding with our main event between Shamil Katayev and Gracia Margarian. Coming up next, it will be Firuza Sharapova and Sarah Marjanovic. You know, plenty of people are interested in that one, are tuning in for that fight specifically. That'll be coming up at the conclusion of our opener between Artem Ivanov and Artish Lobsang, which has been a good one so far. An interesting kind of classic clash of styles between the short, hard-charging fighter and the tall counterpuncher. It's kind of played out exactly as you would think it would. We saw 2 fighters who were evenly matched with those types of styles and those types of dimensions. Both men have had their moments, but from my vantage point, it's felt like Lobsang, as he is right now, has had more of those big moments. Ivanov looks for that left hook to the body again. Again, you'd like to see Ivanov just come a little straighter with his punches. You know, a nice hard jab on the entry might create some openings for him. Oftentimes, he's just kind of getting to the space he wants to be in, getting a little anxious and firing those hooks wide. Ivanov warned a moment ago for using his head. Not a flagrant headbutt. Just kind of a consequence of his type of style. As Lobsang now gives him a dose of his own medicine, hammers to the body with a couple of right hands. That'll do it for round 7. One round to go here between Lobsang and Ivanov as we look back at the penultimate round. Flush right hand there from Lobsang. The action getting a little more haggard at times. Of course, these fighters only have a handful of pro fights between them. Just 4 for Lobsang, just 5 for Ivanov. And this is officially the longest that either fighter has gone in their professional careers as we begin the 8th and final round. Again, it's felt like Lobsang has got the better of Ivanov in the majority of these rounds. He certainly had the most glaring moments. He's the only one of the two fighters who has hurt his opponent to this point. But again, you never know, and there are a lot of judges out there. We've seen it time and time again who sometimes unfairly weight pure aggression, and Ivanov has been nothing if not the aggressor 95% of the time in this fight. And sometimes, especially in these fights between relative novices, that can get you the benefit of the doubt. We'll see, unless we get a big moment here in the 8th round. Certainly anything's possible. We'll see whether that persistence has paid off for Ivanov. Good three-punch combination there from Lobsang. Ooh, good combination. That right hand might have buzzed Ivanov a moment ago. But to his credit, he is firing back. There is a notable sense of desperation coming from Ivanov, whose mouth is open. He's looking tired, but he is firing away, even as he's eating these right hands from Lobsang. Ivanov definitely looking like the more tired fighter, and it makes sense. He's the one expending more energy. Certainly doesn't mean he's been more successful, but we'll leave that up to the judges to determine officially as we enter the final 10 seconds of our opening contest. Fun little opener here in Moscow. Looking at action from the 8th and final round. Ivanov definitely let it all hang out, but I think in doing so left himself wide open for a number of flush shots from Lobsang in that round, and you see the damage on Ivanov's face becoming a little more apparent in that round. But Ivanov fought like a fighter who thought he needed that 8th, and like a fighter who thought that the fight might have been on the line. We'll see if the judges agree. A definite difference in body language here between Ivanov and Lobsang. And it looks like we are about ready to make this one official. As soon as Ivanov gets unlaced. All right, let's send it down to the center of the ring to our ring announcer to make this one official.
Единогласным решением судей одержал Артиш Лобсан, синий угол, Республика Тыва.
So Артиш Lobsang improves to 3-1-1, a hard-fought victory here over Artem Ivanov. And looked like he had recovered well physically after that brutal fight with Pavel Silyagin just a couple of months ago. A very encouraging sign for Lobsang, and certainly an indication that that one loss in a fairly substantial step up in terms of opposition and length of fight just a couple of moments ago. Doesn't spell the end of his career. But there may be some future prospects for him yet. Certainly a terrific build for a super middleweight at 6'3". There is a lot of frame there to work with. Some natural abilities that definitely could be fine-tuned into something interesting to see as the years roll on.
Event 55. Здесь и побеждает Shama Boxing Promotions продолжается. Наш следующий поединок. 8 раундов по 2 минуты. Женский бой. Легкий вес. Рефери в ринге Александр Калинкин. Боковые судьи Семен Стахеев, Михаил Куликов, Антон Шарков. Встречаем участниц. В синий угол ринга, to the blue corner, из Сербии, from the Republic of Serbia, Sara Marjanović.
Time now for women's lightweight action. This is the veteran Sara Marjanović, 32 years of age, from Belgrade, Serbia. 7-7, an even record, but she is coming in riding a 5-fight win streak. She hasn't lost since May of 2017. And in terms of level of opposition and the attention that this fight is getting, no doubt the biggest fight of her career. As she takes on this woman, one of the more popular and one of the more publicized women's fighters in all of boxing. Enters this fight 11-1, 6 of those wins coming by way of knockout. We saw her in August taking on Happy Dowdy in what admittedly was quite a bit of a mismatch. She stopped Dowdy in the 5th round of a one-sided fight. We'll see if she gets a little more resistance tonight in Moscow.
Провела на профессиональном ринге 14 боев, одержала 7 побед, 3 из которых нокаутом, и потерпела 7 поражений. In the blue corner, 32 years old, high 167, weight in 57.3 kilos, professional record 14 bouts, 7 victories, 3 victories by knockout, and 7 defeats. From Belgrade, Republic of Serbia, Sara Marjanović. Красный угол ринга, спортсменке 26 лет, рост 166 сантиметров, вес 60 килограммов 900 граммов. Профессиональный рекорд 12 боев, 11 побед, 6 нокаутом при одном поражении. Чемпионка мира IBO и WBC Silver во втором полулегком весе. Чемпионка мира WIBA и WBU в легком весе. Чемпионка мира IBA в первом полусреднем весе. Представительница команды Ротель Профайт из города Тарас, Казахстан, Фируза Шарипова. Рефери в ринге Александр Калинкин. Round 1.
So here we go, the second fight of 2020 for Firuza Sharipova, the second fight after coming out of retirement in late 2019. She retired after declaring that it just wasn't financially viable to continue her career anymore, and she wasn't getting a shot at the WBC lightweight title that she wanted. Decided she wanted to come back, give it a second shot. She certainly has the fanfare to help drive her as round 1 begins. This one's scheduled for 8 rounds. Sharapova was the very first women's boxer in the history of Kazakhstan. A real trailblazer for the sport in her home country, and since her, 3 other women have turned pro in Kazakhstan. Sharapova certainly not hesitant to let her hands go here in the early going. Marjanovic still really trying to get out of the starting blocks. Looks like Marjanovic might be cut already, perhaps over her left eye. Good 3, 4, 5 punch combination from Sharapova. And the eye of Marjanovic not looking great already here in the opening round. Oh, you couldn't have asked for a better start for Sharapova. An almost perfect opening round for the Kazakh star. A truly one-sided opening round here. We look back at some of the action. We'll try to get a glimpse at where that cut over the left eye of Marjanovic originated, and I think we saw it there in the replay. And we haven't been given an official indication, but it certainly looked in the replay to have come from a punch. Now, whether the cut came from a punch or not, a lot of damage came from punches from Sharapova in that opening round. Kicked things off brilliantly in round 1, and she is right back to where she started here in round 2. Just nothing coming back from Marjanovic so far. And Sharapova, to her credit, I mean, she has been campaigning for tougher opposition. We mentioned her retirement was due to the fact that she felt she deserved a WBC title fight, wasn't getting the funding or the ability to get that fight. But she was in negotiations to face Eva Wallström. And of course, Katie Taylor has the WBC lightweight title as well, or had the WBC lightweight title at the time. So she's been asking for these big fights. Speaking of big fights, for Sharapova, last year odds were released for a possible fight between Sharapova and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Obviously, there were no discussions of that fight. However, Sharapova said she'd be happy to go and train with Putin. Good body work from Sharapova a moment ago, and just an onslaught of punches that are not being returned by Marjanovic. we see some of the action from the second round. One-way traffic here for Sharapova. Good body work. And we see the cut kept reasonably under control by the corner of Marjanovic. Who's coming in, riding a 5-fight win streak, but not off to a good start here tonight. And round 3 begins, and just to correct myself from earlier, of course, Katie Taylor is the current WBC lightweight title holder at the time that Sharapova was campaigning for that fight back in 2018. Taylor had not yet won that title. Of course, Taylor won that title in June of 2019 when she defeated Delphine Persoon the first time. Good left hand right down the middle there from Sharapova. And you do have to hand it to Marjanovic because although she is eating a lot of leather so far, she hasn't looked in distress. She's certainly bloodied, she's taken a lot of shots. And although she's maybe not throwing back as much as you'd want her to, she's still taking her chances offensively here and there. And hasn't seemed to waver from her plan of attack. Sharapova just overwhelming her once again here in round 3 as the blood continues to flow down the face of Marjanovic. See some of the body work here from Firuza Sharapova. And that right hand landed right on that cut, and it was under control until that right hand scraped it. And now there'll be some work to be done in the corner of Marjanovic.
Seconds out. Round 4.
Round 4 underway of this 8-round women's lightweight contest between Firuza Sharapova and Sarah Marjanovic. It has been all Sharapova through the first 3 rounds, and already here in the 4th round as well. We mentioned Sharapova's last contest against Happy Dowdy in her comeback fight in Kazan just a couple of months ago. A very unfortunate mismatch, and not exactly a showcase for Sharapova either, who kind of fought down to Dowdy's level and at times seemed like she was kind of taking it easy on her and showing a little bit of mercy at times. Marjanovic a step up in opposition, but in saying that, hasn't offered much resistance offensively. She has been able to stand up to these punches nonetheless. Sharapova has 6 KOs to her name, but as you can see, I think that as she rises up in the ranks and gets those bigger fights and tougher fights that she's been calling for, I think her calling card will be her volume. She has a tremendous punch output, and albeit there isn't much coming back here tonight, but she has maintained a healthy work rate through these first 4 rounds. We see some more of that high output from Firuza Sharapova.
Seconds out. Round 5.
Round 5 begins. And important to note that Sharapova hasn't gone past the 5th round since September of 2018. And during that layoff that we referenced, we'll call it a layoff, but at the time it was a retirement. She gave birth to a child and was thinking about things other than boxing before opting to return to the sport. Sensing that there were indeed opportunities for her. So even getting past this 5th round, assuming she does, is still a good step for Sharapova as she continues her comeback, if we are going to call it that. Good combination downstairs there from Sharapova. And you can see the amateur polish with Sharapova. Getting some good leverage on these body shots, very technically sound. Very busy, really crams a lot of action into these 2 minutes. And it'll be interesting if she can carry this work rate up in opposition, what she'll be able to achieve at the higher levels at 135. More of the same from Sharapova in the previous round, which is turning into a showcase, really, for her offensive arsenal. Because whatever she thinks up, she is landing it. It was a lot of focus on the body attack in the 5th round.
Seconds out. Round 6.
See if that'll have an effect on Marjanovic as we enter round 6. He's been able to absorb a lot of headshots, but a volume body attack can be a lot to take for even the toughest fighters out there, and Marjanovic is indeed tough. This is the 7th country that she has fought in tonight, so boxing is adding a whole lot of stamps to her passport. Sharapova looking a little out of sorts there a moment ago. And there, you know, she throws so much that sometimes not all of the punches can be technically perfect, but just keeps throwing. There's a good-looking combination from Sharapova. But these are also good fights to learn in. You know, she may look at the tape and look at some of these sequences where maybe her chin's a little bit too high as she's throwing those combinations upstairs and determines she needs to correct that. She's able to learn those lessons here tonight, really without much of a threat in front of her. Really, the question at this point is will Sharapova stop Marjanovic or not? It would be hard to fathom a scenario in which Marjanovic could take a decision, barring, you know, a multitude of knockdowns. Final 10 seconds of round 6. Right hand sneaks in there from Marjanovic. Sharapova replies, and that'll do it for the 6th round. Saw a moment ago, that's really the only way that Marjanovic has been able to stop the onslaught from Firuza Sharapova. That's by holding on. That's by just grabbing a hold on the inside. And probably the first significant shot of the fight for Marjanovic there. Saw at the end of the replay.
7.
That counter right hand. Maybe a little confidence boost for her. We'll see if that maybe entices her to throw a little bit more here in the 7th round. This one's scheduled for 8. Still to come, our middleweight main event. It is Shamil Katayev and Gracia Margarian. Good-looking Russian prospect in Katayev. Or good body work there from Sharapova. We mentioned that Sharapova has been highly publicized throughout her career, and unfortunately most of that attention has come because of her appearance. She was voted Kazakhstan's best-looking athlete. A lot of the things that typically, you know, litter the coverage of women's athletes that frankly would not happen for a male fighter. But recently on Sharapova, just a couple of weeks ago, she reiterated that, I hope all this attention isn't just for my looks, but for my victories. And we keep coming back to the types of fights that she's calling for. You know, Sharapova wants to win a world title. And no doubt, a lot of that attention that Sharapova gets, the publicity, that may lead promoters to give her some opportunities. But she is in here trying to earn it. Saw the cut over the left eye that Marjanovic has been dealing with basically since round 1 of this fight. Looking at action from round 7. Sharapova showing off some of her movement here in the 7th. Showing some rhythm and some range on the outside.
The final round, number 8.
And we'll see how she closes the show here in the 8th and final round of our women's special attraction here live on the Salida Promotions YouTube channel. So pleased that you could join us. Corey Erdman here calling the action all day or night long, depending on where you're watching. 4 more fights still to come. We'll get a look at a whole host of rising Russian prospects, many of whom have fought one another, so there's some continuity storyline-wise in many of our upcoming bouts. As Sharapova just keeps her hands moving round after round, and has really just never let Marjanovic get going. And Marjanovic has won her last 5. 2 of those have come against fighters in their pro debuts. And the other 3 against fighters with just 1 professional win on their record. Clearly a substantial step up for her against Sharapova. But a massive opportunity for her against a big name like Sharapova. Wasn't afraid to take it. And she hasn't been afraid to stand in here all night long. A brave effort from Marjanovic, but ultimately a dominant performance for the Kazakh star, Firuza Sharapova. One last look back at the action from the 8th and final round. And just not a lot that Marjanovic could do with Sharapova in this fight, who clearly better schooled, not more experienced in the pro game, but likely more experienced overall. And just a little bit too much in her arsenal for the double tough Marjanovic, who showed a lot of heart and standing in there for 8 rounds tonight. Good to see Marjanovic in good spirits. Looks like we are ready to make this one official. Let's send it down to our ring announcer.
And the winner by unanimous decision, Firuza Sharipova, красный угол.
Firuza Sharipova improves to 12-1. A one-sided victory over Sara Marjanovic as she continues her comeback of sorts in pro boxing and continues to march towards a possible world title shot. A slight step up in competition for her tonight in Marjanovic from her last fight with Happy Dowdy. And really not a whole lot to criticize when it comes to Sharapova. And it looks like we will hear from the star herself.
Остался незакрытый вопрос по прошлому бою, я считаю, вот этот вот поясочек, вот этот вот мой. Ну, ростика мне не хватит, конечно, но я его заберу. Давай уже подеремся. Нет, я сначала с Соней разберусь, я ее побью, и потом с тобой уже подеремся и сделаем классный бой. Не состоится у нас, по-моему, face-to-face с другим соперником. Но, в общем, мы хотели сделать трэш-ток, но у нас тут... Мы сделаем. Вот, видите, что происходит. Со мной сначала побоксируем. Это твое? Нет, я готова только за пояс драться. Почему? Ну, потому. Нет. Все, спасибо.
Ваши аплодисменты. Отличный трэш-ток. Ангелина, берегите силы для Ольги Бузовой.
Well, I honestly wish I had an explanation for the viewers as to what we just watched there, but I've never seen anyone confront the ring card girls after the fight. But nonetheless, we'll take a look back at the real fight here, which was between Firuza Sharapova and Sarah Marjanovic. A clear shutout decision victory for Firuza Sharapova, who improves to 12-1. More action still to come in just a few moments here on the Salida Promotions YouTube channel.
Это «Дерись и побеждай», Event 55 от Shama Boxing Promotions. Мы продолжаем. Наш следующий поединок 6 раундов, второй средний вес. Рефери в ринге Алексей Козлов. Боковые судьи Семен Стакеев, Михаил Куликов и Александр Калинкин. Приветствуем участников этого поединка. В синий угол ринга боксер из города Ангарск Василий Штык.
As we move along here on the Salida Promotions YouTube channel, super middleweight action. This is Vasily Shtik. He was born in Belarus, now residing in Russia. He is 1-1. Suffered his first professional defeat just about a month ago on September 3rd against Shamil Katayev, who we'll see in our main event. Now looking to bounce back against this man, Mikhail Ostromov, who enters the fight with a record of 1-0-1. That one win came by way of stoppage in his professional debut. Ostromov has been one of the stars of the Israeli amateur boxing team and was even in the Olympic qualifiers earlier on this year. More on that as we continue on. But a good-looking super middleweight contest between a pair of prospects. Let's send it down to the center of the ring for the official introductions.
Провел 2 профессиональных боя, одержал 1 досрочную победу и потерпел 1 поражение. Из Ангарска Василий Штык. Красный угол ринга. Боксер 22 года. Рост 184 сантиметра. Вес 76 килограммов 500 граммов. Провел 2 боя. В одном одержал досрочную победу, в другом была зафиксирована ничья. Из Санкт-Петербурга подготовку к бою провел в Сочи в лагере команды Куба Боксинг Михаил Остроумов. Рефери в ринге Алексей Козлов. Первый раунд.
Round 1 underway. This one's scheduled for 6 rounds in the super middleweight division. 2 aggressive southpaws here. Mikhail Ostromov, you see in the black trunks trimmed with silver. Vasily Shtik in the red trunks trimmed in white. I mentioned that Shtik, last time out, dropped an 8-round decision to Shamil Katayev, who we'll see a little bit later on in our main event. Ostromov has had a bizarre year, to say the very least. In March, he was at the Olympic qualifier tournament, which had a highly publicized COVID-19 outbreak, and he actually fought one of the members of the Turkish team, which had one of the outbreaks. So certainly an odd year. And not the best start here, as he might have been rattled by one of those right hooks by Vasily Shtik. Two very aggressive southpaws here in this fight. These aren't typical southpaw slicksters. Both guys coming right at one another. A good mesh of styles here. Both men landing flush several times here, just in the opening minute and a half. And this is also an interesting dynamic that we'll see with many of the fighters that we're seeing tonight and have seen, and that's that a lot of these guys were either amateurs recently or are still competing in the amateur ranks as they try to make the Olympics for their respective countries. And so a lot of these guys have fought one another recently in the amateurs and are now turning pro, or kind of straddling that line and facing one another again. Good action here in the opening round with Ostromov and Shtik.
Внимание, напоминаю, что все зрители в зале должны быть в масках без исключения. Пожалуйста, кто не надел, наденьте маски.
There was good action in this opening round, as we just mentioned. Both these southpaws really starting aggressively. Both guys landing some good shots. That was the most significant of the opening round. I felt that Ostromov started to push the pace as the round went on, but the best looking shot of the entire round was landed there in the early going by Vasily Shtik. Round 2 underway. These guys just take the center of the ring and just start jabbing. Good tempo here from Shtik and Ostromov. rough stuff there from Shtick, and this is becoming a theme in Ostromov's fights. He was bloodied by a headbutt by Ravshan Ergashev in his last bout, which was a little over a month ago. It got a little rough, a little testy at times. Seems to have healed from that cut, but it was something to keep an eye on coming into this fight, and maybe we're starting to see that a little bit again. Two hard-charging fighters. Two guys that are fighting really wound up here. That kind of stuff is bound to happen, and you see both guys taking a few shots here in the break, then coming out and just letting it fly. Ostromov just trying to pour it on Shtick right now. He has Shtick against the ropes. And Shtick in his previous fights was kind of purporting to be more of a stick and move jabber, but he has really abandoned that tonight. A good shot again. That will be a warning for a low blow. Looked like he was right on the belt line. Ostromov just letting it fly here in the second round. These types of matchups, I won't say that they're certainly not unique to Russian boxing, but you look at what this matchup is. I mean, Mikhail Ostromov was in the Olympic qualifiers earlier on this year. He's already got a blemish on his pro record at 1-0-1 because he was matched against Ravshan Ergashev. Now he's in against another guy in Vasily Shtick, who was a pretty good amateur as well. Again, it's not unique to Russian boxing, but in other countries, someone who had any kind of amateur success is not getting match tough typically in the first 10, 12 fights of their pro career. But consistently, as Shtick will recover from a shot that was definitely a low blow. We'll take a look back at it. Right, back to the point about the matchups. Just again and again, when you watch Russian shows, you're seeing fighters match tough at a juncture of in their career that you typically wouldn't see, say, an American prospect get matched up. See some of the action from round two, which did get messy at times, but this is the good stuff here. This is that swarming volume attack from Ostromov. And kind of flirting with some low blows at times. One definitely did land low, but we'll see if that deters him from going downstairs as round three begins. You're looking at super middleweight action between Mikhail Ostromov and Vasily Shtick. Ostromov, born in Israel, now residing in St. Petersburg, Russia, as we mentioned, still representing Israel on the amateur scene, which has been largely halted due to COVID-19. So at the moment, focusing on his professional career. A bit of an unusual stoppage there. It was Shtick who was warned for not turning around, but he got hit as he was turned around. It's not really Ostromov's fault, and it's not incumbent upon him necessarily to stop punching. Still took a step around and landed a hook. It wasn't like he punched him in the back of the head. You wonder if Stick is maybe starting to get broken down by the just constant energy, constant aggression of Ostromov. Ooh, shot behind the head there from Stick. That should be a warning. Both men trading fouls, some more intentional than others. Another one right behind the head from Stick, and you know, we speculated that maybe he's starting to get frustrated, and those would be common signs of frustration, starting to break the rules willingly. Less than a minute to go here in round 3. Ostromov trying to bounce back from that draw with Ravshan Ergashev. Stick warned again a moment ago. That's the 3rd time he's been warned for a foul this round. And you see Ostromov now kind of hip to Stick's plan there. Goes to block the shot behind the head, but now he retaliates with another low blow. So warnings just being dished out on either side by our referee. No points taken away. And now these two come to center of the ring. Throw some legal shots, although that one bordered. It's getting messy here in Moscow, folks. Good little scoop uppercut there from Vasily Stick. That's one of the legal shots that landed in this round, but the story of the 3rd was all about the fouls. A couple of shots behind the head from Stick, another low blow from Ostromov that came moments after one of those shots behind the head. So certainly reasonable to interpret that as being retaliatory.
4-й раунд.
Round 4 begins. And we'll see if these two can kind of clean it up here in the 4th round. They've both been warned. Really, it would be at the referee's discretion at this point to take some points away. And in a 6th rounder, that is oftentimes an insurmountable hole to climb out of. Ooh, good overhand left. Lands there from Ostromov. You could hear that one. And for just reading body language here, Stick looks to me like he's getting a little bit unnerved. He's getting a little tired. He's a little frustrated. Ostromov just looks angry and motivated, and he is just keeping it on Stick. Good little reply there from Stick, though. Every once in a while, he definitely bounces back with a nice little combination. he hasn't yet been able to deter Mikhail Ostromov. Good body shot there from Stick. Final 40 seconds here of round 4. Stick's got to be careful. Just a little tap behind the head. The referee intervenes. Doesn't want those old instincts to come back here, because it could mean the deduction of a point. And there's another late shot. We'll see what the referee does. Yeah, that'll be a point. I mean, Stick has been towing the line round after round. Oh, he just got clipped with a big left hand from Ostromov, who spins him around and lands another right hook. Well, that's the way to retaliate within the rules. Stick actually did some good work in the early going in the 4th round. But the sustained pressure still came from Ostromov, and particularly after the point deduction. He got rocked again by Ostromov. So all in all, really a disastrous round for Vasily Stick, and really it was of Stick's own doing. Another big shot lands there from Ostromov, and he is on the attack. Stick starting to weather a little bit. He's still throwing back, but there is some urgency in his retreat right now. Ostromov pouring it on. See Ostromov there a moment ago, just kind of turning his back, had to be tapped by the referee. He's looking a little bit discouraged, maybe losing focus here. Another left hand comes over the top from Ostromov. Ostromov hunting for the knockout here. Ostromov does have one knockout in his lone professional victory that came in his debut against the journeyman, Karen Avanesyan. And that stoppage win was still impressive. I know you'll look at BoxRec, you'll see Karen Avanesyan. That's a name that will be consistent amongst many of the Russian prospects in and around this weight neighborhood. You'll see that coming into that fight, Avanesyan was 9-33-4. But he's only been stopped 6 times in his pro career, so he generally will take these prospects the distance. So if you do stop him, sometimes that could be an indication that you're a step above some of your contemporaries. And Ostromov trying to prove that. A little showmanship, a little look away, right hand. And Ostromov can be a little bit of a showman. He is known for his backflips in celebration when he wins. We saw that a lot in his amateur career, and well, we've only seen it once as a professional. If things keep going this way, we maybe get a little flip at the end from Ostromov. It's really the first true dominant round from start to finish from either fighter. Mikhail Ostromov in cruise control right now. Good work here from Mikhail Ostromov, who really put it all together in this round. As Vasily Shtik just really seemed to lose his focus and lose his confidence in that fifth round. After losing a point in the fourth, just came out looking like a totally different fighter.
Финальный шестой раунд.
And the way that the fifth round was going, we'll see if Shtik can make it to the final bell. I think there is a possibility of an Ostromov stoppage. If he could throw some shots like that, good 1-2. Kick things off in the sixth round, and another one from Ostromov, who is just teeing off right now in the center of the ring. Good body shot from Ostromov, climbs the ladder. Three-punch combination upstairs, nothing coming back from Vasily Shtik. You know, Shtik is standing in there, and all the credit to him for being in there and taking these shots and still firing back once in a while, but body language-wise, he is looking like a defeated fighter. Right uppercut there from Ostromov. The hands don't move, the head doesn't move from Shtik. He is just taking these shots. As his energy level just continues to dwindle, Ostromov's has remained the same or gone up since the opening round. Counter left over the top from Ostromov there. Peeks to his corner for some instructions. About a minute and a half left to go in this fight. Behind the head, behind the back shot there from Ostromov, and now Shtik hitting him in the back of his head. He's already been penalized for that. But at this point, you really have to think it's either knockout or nothing for Shtik. Who might have been losing those early rounds anyway, but really took himself out of this fight. Or had it taken out of him by Mikhail Ostromov, who rocks him again with the left hand a second ago. Other left hand just connects right on the point of the chin of Vasily Shtik. And that will do it. And nobody happier for this one to be over than Mr. Shtik. Well, Ostromov brought it till the very end. He was looking for that stoppage, but Shtik, you know, as out of it as he seemed to be in that sixth round and the fifth round emotionally, he was still able to eat those shots. That is one tough man. It looks like we are ready to make this one official. Let's send it down to our ring announcer.
Единогласным решением судей победу одержал Михаил Остроумов. Красный угол.
Well, we don't even need to read the scorecards. We knew who the winner was in this one. It is Mikhail Ostromov picking up his second career victory, and a good-looking one, against Vasily Shtik, who also entered this fight only with one blemish on his pro career. And there it is. There's the backflip. Almost stuck the landing. Gave us a handstand as a consolation prize.
Мы продолжаем наш следующий поединок. 6 раундов, второй средний вес. Рефери в ринге Александр Калинкин. Боковые судьи Антон Шарков, Алексей Козлов и Элбек Церенов. Встречаем участников. В синий угол ринга боксер из Ставрополя Тимур Пашалиев.
Time now for super middleweight action as we move things along here. This is Timur Pashaliev.
Олег Хард Мисюра.
And Pashaliev enters this fight with a record of 1-1-2. 25-year-old Russian, and he'll be taking on this man, Oleg Misura, with one of the more on-the-nose nicknames in all of boxing, Hard. Enters this fight with a record of 5-0, 4 of those wins coming by way of knockout. He knocked out Varazdat Chernikov in the second round. We'll see Chernikov up next. And he'll be taking on Evgeny Terentiev. Misura stopped him in 2. We'll see what he has in store for us tonight. Let's send it down to our ring announcer for the official introduction.
80 килограммов 300 граммов. Провел 4 боя, одержал 1 победу нокаутом, потерпел 1 поражение и в 2 боях зафиксирована ничья. Из Ставрополя Тимур Пашалиев. Красный угол ринга, боксеру 29 лет, рост 180 сантиметров, вес 79 килограммов 750 граммов. На профессиональном ринге провел 5 боев, одержал 5 побед, 4 нокаутом, ни одного поражения. По прозвищу Хард из Москвы Олег Мисюра. Рефери в ринге Александр Калинкин. Первый раунд.
Готовы? Синий готовы? Синий. Готовы? Можно?
Round 1 of this 8-round super middleweight contest. This is Oleg Misura in the black trunks, taking on Timur Pashaliev in the red trunks. Misura, a former Russian national champion as well as the Russian Army champion. He served in the Russian military. He said prior to this fight he's going to bring some heat to this cold autumn. He's He's no doubt hunting for yet another knockout victory. You see he's got the Mike Tyson-esque short trunks on. Those are puncher's trunks. See if he's got the puncher's fists here tonight. Missoura is buddies with Alexander Usyk, who of course faces Derek Chisora, the Joker Derek Chisora, tomorrow night on DAZN for our American, Canadian, and UK viewers. Pashaliev was stopped in his last contest, stopped in the third round against Vasily Wojtkowski. He started his career with 2 draws. His only win came via TKO on cuts back in 2018. A good shot there from Missoura. That was a right hook that connected. Ooh, looking for the same shot, trying to come over the top. Oh, he connected with that one. What a shot! Oleg Missoura, my goodness, what a right hand. Boy, Missoura said he would bring the heat here tonight, and boy, did he. A devastating right-hand shot, and I don't know if Pashaliev should be on his feet at the moment. Right now, really the concern is for the well-being of Pashaliev, but let's take a look at this overhand right. That one looked like it connected just on the tip of the chin, and that one right flush on the temple. A highlight reel knockout for the man they call hard. Let's take a look back at it one more time. Missoura getting those right hands in from the early going. Looked like he might have connected with that one, but that is the one that he got every possible piece of. Here it is, bang. Through the bottom ropes goes Pashaliev. And good to see that Pashaliev now being seated and tended to. Pashaliev had previously spent 2 years out of the ring due to injury. You see the double knee sleeves that he wears in the ring, and another devastating result for him.
Занимайтесь спортом, но аккуратно. Тренируйтесь, не выходите неподготовленные в ринг. Спасибо всем, кто смотрит этот бой.
Missoura thanking his fans there. We mentioned he was a Russian national champion, so definitely someone to keep his eye on. Excuse me, someone to keep your eye on. And someone that could potentially move pretty quickly. In this day and age in boxing, people with serious amateur pedigrees don't waste their time. They hop right on the fast track. Missoura could bring power like this up to the higher levels. It's going to be a serious threat. What a shot. That's the kind of overhand right that Derek Chisora will be looking for on Misura's buddy Alexander Usyk tomorrow night. We wait for Timur Pashaliev, of course, to be in stable enough condition to be brought to the back. And back up to a vertical base is the 24-year-old Timur Pashaliev. A round of applause from everyone. Definitely a scary, scary knockout at the hands of Oleg Misura. All right, looks like we're going to make this one official. Let's send it down to the center of the ring to our ring
В
announcer.
этом бою через 1 минуту 54 секунды первого раунда одержал победу нокаутом и остался непобежденным Олег Хард Мисюра. Итак, это Shama Boxing Promotions, Event 55, «Дерись и побеждай». Совсем скоро состоится главный бой сегодняшнего вечера за вакантный титул чемпиона WBA Азия в среднем весе. Но сначала еще один поединок в среднем весе 8 раундов. Рефери в ринге Семен Стахеев. Боковые судьи Антон Шарков, Алексей Козлов и Александр Калинкин. Встречаем участников. В синий угол ринга боксер из Новороссийска Вараздат Черников.
And time now for our co-feature. Middleweight action here. This is Varazdat Chernikov. A journeyman who has been a common opponent for many of our fighters that you've seen here tonight. Shamo Boxing, presented by Salita Promotions here live on YouTube. Chernikov, we mentioned, was stopped by Oleg Misura, who we just saw a moment ago. He was stopped in the second round on September 4th of this year. So a quick turnaround for a fighter who was stopped just a little over a month ago. And now facing yet another serious test in Evgeny Terentiev, who will be making his way through the curtain in just a moment. Chernikov entering this fight with a record of 11-16. 11 of those losses have come by way of knockouts. So as many knockout losses as he has wins. 29 years of age. we await the entrance of Chernikov's opponent, Evgeny Terentiev. Maybe didn't expect our previous fight with Oleg Misura to go as quickly as it did. We saw that highlight reel knockout from Misura. Definitely had to speed things up, and you know, the administration of boxing cards during COVID-19 is very tricky because you can't just have fighters kind of huddled around the curtain warming up. And sometimes there are delays, if only for safety precautions and cleaning. So you can experience some unexpected delays like this one. And it looks like we see a shadow in the distance. There he is. Evgeny Terentiev, 15-3, 7 wins coming by way of knockout. The 28-year-old southpaw out of St. Petersburg, Russia. Coming off a loss in February of this year against Islam Ida Sultanov, and now looking to get back on track. Let's send it down to the center of the ring for the official introductions.
Проводит свой 28-й профессиональный поединок. Чемпион мира ЮБО во втором среднем весе из Новороссийска, Вараздат Удав Чернигов. Красный угол ринга, боксеру 28 лет, рост 178 сантиметров, вес 75 килограммов 300 граммов. На профессиональном ринге провел 18 боев, одержал 15 побед, 7 нокаутом при 3 поражениях. Чемпион WBC International Silver и WBC СНГ и славянских стран в первом среднем весе. Прошедший подготовку к бою в Сочи в лагере команды Cuba Boxing из Санкт-Петербурга Евгений Терентьев. Рефери в ринге Семен Стахеев. Всем зрителям, пожалуйста, наденьте маски. Первый раунд.
So round one between Evgeny Terentiev and Varazdad Chernikov. Terentiev in the blue trunks trimmed in gold. Chernikov in the all-white trunks. And don't blink because, well, number one, Terentiev could punch. He has 7 knockouts in his 15 wins, but maybe more importantly, Chernikov has been stopped in his last 7 fights. Mentioned he was stopped just a little over a month ago by Oleg Misura, who we saw just about 10 minutes ago on this card. Was dropped twice by Misura before that fight was stopped. But the one thing about Chernikov is that he definitely always goes for it. Terentiev took a little punishment in his last fight. We mentioned the loss to Islam Ida Sultanov. In February of this year, he was dropped for the 2nd time in his career. In 2 of his 3 losses, he's been knocked down. So as a general rule, you have to knock him down if you're going to beat him. And in fights that he's hurt, he has tended to go on and lose, but he's been in there with some serious opposition. He has a win over Artur Osipov, who was 15-0 at that point. I think at one time might have been in the top 5 in the WBA. He took Magomadiev to the limit, dropped a split decision. Madiev last year was supposed to face Patrice Volney on the undercard of Danny Jacobs and Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. That was supposed to be a WBA eliminator, possibly for the right to face Gennady Golovkin were that fight to materialize. So you know, these are guys that he's either beaten or been on equal footing with. Good shot there from Terentiev. I think Chernikov felt that one. Was right to the ropes. Terentiev trying to bring more left hands right behind that one. Chernikov covering up. Good body shot from Terentiev. There's a left hand again. Chernikov looking like he might be in trouble already. And Terentiev backs off. This one will see round 2. A dominant opening round as expected for Evgeny Terentiev. Looked like he might have had Chernikov in trouble towards the end of that round.
Секунданты. Второй раунд.
Round 2 underway. Evgeny Terentiev and Varazdat Chernikov. One of the recognizable journeymen here in Russian boxing. Trying to avoid being stopped for the 12th time in his career, but Evgeny Terentiev, at least towards the end of round 1, is looking like he's well on his way to adding to that number. Good body shot there from Terentiev. Chernikov just covering up along the ropes. Chernikov firing back, coming off the ropes. Fires back just often enough to keep Terentiev honest. Terentiev says he lives a very quiet life, even before COVID. When he's not training, he says he goes into isolation. When he isn't training, excuse me. And when he's not, he enjoys being in nature. He enjoys fishing with his family. So this time hasn't been too bad for him. This time looking pretty rough for Chernikov right now, who falls against the ropes, and that will do it. And that is responsible officiating there. No doubt that the referee is aware of who these competitors are, aware that this was not going to get more competitive, and Chernikov is only going to be in more and more danger as time goes on here. So a nice, easy bounce-back win for Evgeny Terentiev, who picks up his 8th knockout in his pro career. And Chernikov suffers the 12th knockout loss of his pro career, his 8th in a row. It is a tough way to make a living. You have to respect that. Referee sensing that Chernikov's a little out of sorts. And that's the appropriate call. I mean, he could have let that go until we had another situation like we had with Oleg Misura and Timur Pashaliev. No need for that. Saw everything that we needed to know, and we know that Evgeny Terentiev is back in the win column and ready to challenge some junior middleweights and some middleweights here in Russia and on the global scene.
Победу техническим нокаутом одержал Евгений Терентьев, Санкт-Петербург, красный угол.
So Evgeny Terentiev improves to 16-3. And we will hear from Mr. Terentiev.
Добрый вечер. Спасибо всем за поддержку такую. Шама боксинг, Шамиль, спасибо за приглашение на турнир. Анатолий, спасибо, то, что поддерживал, лагерь отправил. Хороший лагерь прошел. Ляль, тебе тоже огромное спасибо. Всем моим друзьям огромное спасибо за такую поддержку. Дальше, надеюсь, будем показывать зрелищные бои. С такой командой других вариантов нету. Огромное спасибо всем.
Итак, дамы и господа, впереди у нас главный бой сегодняшнего вечера за вакантный титул чемпиона WBA Азия в среднем весе 10 раундов. Супервайзер боя всего вечера, руководитель департамента профессионального бокса Федерации бокса России Олег Агеев. Рефери в ринге Семен Стахеев. Боковые судьи Антон Шарков, Александр Калинкин и Михаил Куликов. Встречаем претендентов на титул. Синий угол ринга, боксер из Москвы, Грача Маргарян.
The time now for our main event. 10 rounds in the middleweight division with the WBA Asia title on the line. This is Gratcha Margarian, who is coming off a 2-year layoff and into what is perhaps the biggest fight of his young career, entering this fight at 7-1-1.
Боксера в красный угол ринга, представляющего Чеченскую Республику, Шамиль Хантаев.
And here's the man that Margarian will challenge tonight. The 2017 Russian national champion, Shamil Katayev, who tonight is in search of his 5th professional victory. I saw him just about a month ago on September 3rd. He picked up an 8-round decision over Vasily Shtik, who we saw earlier on tonight. Again, some continuity with a lot of the characters that we'll see on tonight's show. But Katayev, of the prospects in and around 160, 168, 154, has seemingly risen above the pack, and he's looking to prove that tonight.
Представляем претендентов на титул чемпиона WBA Азия в среднем весе. Синий угол ринга, боксеру 30 лет, рост 172 сантиметра, вес 72 килограмма 400 граммов. Провел 9 боев, одержал 7 побед, 5 из которых нокаутом, при одном поражении и в одном бою зафиксирована ничья. Уроженец Армении, представляющий Москву, Грача Маргарян. Красный угол ринга, боксеру 24 года, рост 175 сантиметров, вес 72 килограмма 500 граммов. На профессиональном ринге провел 4 боя. Во всех 4 одержал победы, 1 нокаутом, ни одного поражения. Из Чеченской Республики Шамиль Хатаев. Рефери в ринге Семен Стахеев.
Господа боксеры, слушаем мнение команды внимательно. Пожали руки, я желаю вам удачи по углам.
Первый раунд.
So Shamil Katayev, Russian amateur standout, rising prospect, fighting at the true middleweight limit of 160 pounds for the very first time in his career. Round 1 underway. This one's scheduled for 10. Katayev in the white trunks trimmed with red. Gracha Margarian in the black trunks trimmed in gold. And really, if there have been any questions about Katayev at this juncture of his career, it's whether or not he has true middleweight power. Of course, he only has 1 knockout on his ledger at this point. That came in his professional debut. But it's also important to note that, again, he's never actually fought at 160 pounds on the dot. To correct myself there, he did fight at 158 in his second pro bout, but then he jumped all the way up to light heavyweight, which he definitely is not. Fought at 164 against Vasily Shtik. It was 164 in his pro debut as well. So this is one of the only times we've really seen Katayev appropriately matched physically in terms of where he'll be as he climbs the ladder. Against a true middleweight in Margarian, who himself has fought up at light heavyweight as well in some kind of stay busy fights. Fought at light heavyweight back in 2015, but mainly has been in and around the middleweight weight class. That's a good shot from Katayev, good left hook connects. Katayev, to his credit, he says he's not worried about knockouts necessarily. He says that the main thing is just to win the fight. If you don't get the knockout, you have to have the endurance to last. Boxing isn't just a fight, it's a sport. But despite that, Katayev certainly boxes like it's a fight. He's what I would describe as sort of a new school pressure fighter. He's not the pressure fighter you'd think of maybe in past years, the hands high, kind of face-forward brawlers. He's a guy who's going to give you angles, he's going to give you some creativity offensively, but he's still going to walk you down. We're seeing him kind of slowly get the engine going here in the opening round. Margarian with a good combination to the body. Katayev replies with a right hand over the top. See some of the work from Katayev in the opening round. likes to fight off that front foot. He likes to be the one who's moving forward. And there's some of those creative angles you'll see him take once in a while.
То, что сейчас сделал, двойный. Только подшагни вперед. Понял? Где-то потом после двойного правый добавил. Все видишь, все низко, шумно. Качается. Давай его переднюю руку иногда. Я правда.
Секунданты. Второй раунд.
Round 2 underway. We mentioned the 2-year layoff for Gracia Margarian. His last fight came in May of 2018 when he dropped a unanimous decision to Artur Osipov. In that fight, Margarian gave up a lot in terms of size, in terms of height, in terms of reach. Much as Katayev is, Margarian is physically matched much better here tonight. The good news about the Osipov fight, though, is that the scores were all over the place. One judge had it a 1-point fight, another had it a total blowout, the third had it somewhere in the middle. So depending on who you ask, it might have been a really competitive fight. And if you're an optimist, that's what you'll take away from that night for Margarian. And now the question is whether he can bring whatever degree of sharpness he had on that night into tonight and challenge a guy in Katayev who has a lot of schooling, a lot of amateur experience. All right, now Katayev just visually, physically looks like a much bigger man than Margarian. Katayev went the 8-round distance for the first time against Vasily Shtik in his last contest. Getting a lot of rounds in the bank, 8 rounds in September, a 10-rounder now in October. Would suggest that he is on the fast track. Kataev's brother was also a Russian national champion, so boxing success runs in that family. And Shamil says that his main motivation is his brother. He says he sees his brother's work ethic and how hard he trains in the gym, and that motivates him to push even harder each and every day. Cutting a good tempo here in the second round. He's making Margarian miss. Good little flurry there, although he might have caught a right hand and a left hook there from Margarian. But he certainly can't fall asleep. Good action there in the second round.
Да, видишь, где печень, где сердце. Прямой видишь, но попробуй обведи его. Вот ты когда входишь в средний, попробуй правый снизу сюда ударить, левая печень. Понял? Меняй этажи, он уже руки высоко держит. У тебя хорошо получается под его переднюю руку сделать уклон, ударь короткий правый под сердце. Понял? И неплохо чувствуешь ногами, где-то растаскивай его. Хорошо?
Секунданты. Третий раунд.
Round 3 begins. We'll see if Shamil Katayev can pick up the pace here a little bit. We saw Margarian have a little bit of success at the end of round 2. He snuck a right hand and a left hook right before the bell in. And Kataev, when you look at his record, you know, if you pull up his box rec, maybe his opposition doesn't look like the kind of opposition one would have if they're being fast-tracked. You know, this isn't Vasily Lomachenko facing Orlando Salido right out of the gate or anything like that. But the guys that he's been facing have also been solid amateurs, and we talked about that a little bit earlier on here tonight. The way that many of these Russian prospects are being matched, they're not being given journeyman after journeyman and kind of gimme wins to start their careers. They're fighting one another. And a lot of the guys that Kataev has been facing have been decent to solid amateurs as well. Some of his contemporaries from the Russian amateur ranks, he's just been facing them in professional bouts as he starts his career. So the records of some of his opponents and maybe the results haven't been as eye-popping as they could have been if Kataev had just faced, you know, your standard fare of journeyman right out of the gate. You also have to look at the length of these fights. He fought an 8-rounder about a month ago. This is a 10-rounder with a regional belt on the line. These are still significant strides early in the career for a prospect. Just missing over the top of the right hand. You see the style of Kataev. I think pretty aesthetically pleasing. You know, a lot of movement, but his upper body movement. He's staying in the pocket. He's not moving around the ring a whole lot. He's staying in front of his opponent or he's walking them down. But he's seemingly always in range to land something. Margarian connects with that right hand over the top again. Making a case to steal around 2 rounds in a row. See some of the action from the 3rd round. Good body shot, connects there from Kataev. There's that overhand right. Margarian's been looking for that. He's connected a couple of times. Right at the end of round 3, right at the end of round 2.
Секунданты. 4-й раунд.
Round 4 underway. Couple shots to the body there from Margarian. Tries to go back downstairs. Margarian, part of a long line of Armenian-born boxers. Of course, you remember names like Viktor Archinian and Arthur Abraham, and Suzy Kantikian and Koren Gavor, Vanis Martirosyan. Great tradition of boxing in Armenia, and some of the best and most rabid fans in all of boxing. Kataev starting to close the distance between he and Margarian here. Hard right hand to the body connects from Kataev. One thing of note is that Kataev hasn't really been able to walk Margarian down. You know, he's staying in a tight circle and boxing around him. He's staying in the pocket. He isn't really backing Margarian up. And I wonder if that's a tactical decision from Kataev, or if Margarian has managed to stand his ground, and if some of those shots that he has landed, those overhand rights that have connected at the end of round 3, at the end of round 2, if that's keeping Kataev on the outside. Final 10 seconds of round 4. Kataev looking to pick up the pace. No late round heroics from Margarian at the end of round 4. You see some good work from Margarian. He is most certainly in this fight. He has been competitive. You know, despite being the B side in this fight. Some might view him as just kind of a step in the elevation of Kataev. He is certainly not viewing this fight that way.
Пятый раунд.
Round 5 of this 10-round middleweight contest. Good body shot there from Margarian. You know, you probably think that Kataev is winning these rounds, but it's maybe not the level of separation between he and Margarian that you would have expected. And you wonder, as we approach the midway point of this fight, if Kataev could start pulling away. And now he's starting to back Margarian up a little bit. Good flush right hand there from Kataev. Now he's starting to put Margarian on the back foot a little bit more often. We talked about that in round 4. Margarian defensively throughout his career has basically been kind of a catch and shoot kind of counterpuncher. He looks to just block with a high guard and then come back maybe with a jab, or wait until you're done until he fires. And guys like that typically don't fight well backing up. You can force Margarian onto the back foot a little bit more often. I wonder if some more openings will present themselves for Kataev. Body shots there from Kataev, just out hustling Margarian right now. Now starting to hunt him down. Final 30 seconds of round 5. Kataev in round 5 here, just drastically outthrowing Margarian. Substantially busier is Kataev, but there's Margarian with a right hand right at the bell. Seems like that 10-second knock triggers something in him that isn't there earlier in the round. Still showing us he's in this fight as we look back at some of the action from round 5.
Секунданты. 6-й раунд.
Round 6 underway. This is our main event. This event being dubbed Fight and Win by Shamo Boxing Promotions. We're bringing it to you live on the Salida Promotions YouTube channel. Once again, bringing you high-level international boxing live and free around the world. Big thanks to Dimitri Salida and Shamo Boxing for partnering up on this one once again. Hope to bring you many more of these. And right now you're getting a look at Shamil Kataev, a highly touted Russian middleweight prospect. Won the Russian national title as an amateur in 2017. His brother replicated that feat. And he says he prefers the pro game because he likes being able to focus on one fight rather than, as he put it, enduring the mental and emotional drain of up to 5 fights in a weekend. And certainly can't blame him. And now he's just got one challenge to focus on, and that's Gracia Margarian. He's coming off the only loss of his career, as we mentioned, almost 2 years ago, coming off the longest layoff. The second longest layoff, excuse me, of his career. Took some significant time off between 2012 and 2015. Margarian's had some success with that overhand right. Saw it connect a moment ago. He's landed it a couple times in this fight. And occasionally gets in some good body work as well. Kataev will definitely have some things to spot in the tape when he goes back and watches this fight. There's another right hand from Margarian. Final 10 seconds of round 6. Some more moments for Margarian, but the hustle, the volume continues to come from Kataev.
Секунданты. 7-й раунд.
So we'll see if Margarian can pick up where he left last round. But maybe on the whole, the best round for Margarian in this fight. I don't know if he won it necessarily, but he had more moments in that 6th round than he had in previous rounds. You know, last time we had Shamo Boxing here on the Salida Promotions YouTube channel, we saw a big upset in our main event. Kasan Gasanov winning the Russian light heavyweight title when he upset Artur Ziatinov, another highly touted Russian amateur who was on the ascent, had dreams of a world title shot within a year and a half, and the journeyman Gasanov snatched that away from him. So upsets are certainly not out of the question. And this is some good work from Margarian. That was a terrific body shot on that left hook that landed on Kataev. Boy, everything on paper pointed to this maybe not being an easy night for Kataev, but certainly pointed to things being in his favor. The amateur experience, the size, the measurables, the layoff for Margarian. And even if Margarian isn't winning rounds, even if you don't have him winning any of these rounds, you'd have to agree that he is making it competitive. And he is making Kataev think and making him work. Left hook and lands there from Margarian. Are these moments frequent enough when stacked against the volume that Kataev is putting out there? Margarian lands a right hand. Now he's back at Kataev up. Things starting to get interesting here in Moscow. Double left hook downstairs, brings an uppercut up the middle. Good combination from Kataev, but there's that sneaky right hand from Margarian that lands again in the final 10 seconds. Another pretty good round for Gracia Margarian here. Saw left hook, excuse me, land a moment ago. Another right hand from him. That was right before the bell. Another one right there. Now, consistently, he leaves an impression in the final 10 seconds. I know that rounds shouldn't be weighted that way, but we've seen many, many instances where that has seemingly been the case. So you certainly never know. We have a competitive fight on our hands here in the main event. Shamil Kataev fighting in a 10-rounder for the very first time in his career, and for a regional title within the World Boxing Association as well. An important step for prospects, at least as boxing is presently constructed, with the multitude of belts that exist in every sanctioning body. That's the game they're forced to play. And so titles like this, for what they're currently worth, they are significant. Two shots to the body there from Katayev. Halfway through round 8. Left hook downstairs, left hook connects up top from Margarian. Another right hand over the top from Margarian. Another one connects. So some defensive lapses here from Shamil Katayev, who was reportedly the first Chechen boxer to win the Russian national championship since Artur Beterbiev. And of course, we know what he's gone on to do as perhaps the best light heavyweight on the planet right now. Big footsteps for Katayev to follow in, but right now, it's right hands he has to worry about. They're coming from Gracia Margarian, and they are landing quite often, a little more often than you'd be comfortable with as a fan of Katayev. Another right hand and another interesting round. Things may be a little too close for comfort here in Moscow.
Секунданты. 9-й раунд.
Round 9 begins, and things have begun to get interesting. Gracia Margarian has found holes in the defense of Shamil Katayev. Looks for a big uppercut there, but that was a good flurry to the body from Katayev. Another right hand from Margarian. Katayev really has not found an answer for that right hand. Double left hook from Katayev. Margarian fires back. These guys just trading flurries now with 2 rounds to go in our main event. Right hand connects again from Margarian. The eye-catching shots are coming from the underdog. There's a good right hand from Katayev. And we mentioned it's Katayev's style to stand right in front of his opponent. He stays in that tight circle, he stays in the pocket. But so far, he really hasn't been able to make Margarian miss. Not consistently. Not consistently enough. He might get the win here tonight, but this has to be an eye-opener for Katayev and his team. Right hand scrapes Katayev again. Margarian backs him up with another right. Both men flurry in the final 10 seconds. Do we have a nail biter here? It's hard to predict what the judges are seeing, but the feel of this fight without scoring actively feels like this one could be close. Look back at some of the action from round 5. There was a good left hand to the body from Margarian. Again, the good news for Katayev is that he always gives you something to look at. He's always moving his hands, he throws a lot of punches. So volume is in his favor in each and every round. But how heavily are these hard shots from Margarian being weighted? You see, Katayev has been busted up. He's fighting through a cut. Fighting through a lot more resistance than he or maybe anyone else expected here tonight. But here we go, the 10th and final round. Body work from Margarian. Left downstairs, brings a right hand up top. Now looks for a sweeping right hand downstairs as well. Margarian trying to push Katayev back. Finishes that combination with a jab upstairs, now digs some shots downstairs. Right hand comes over the top from Margarian again. You do have to wonder, has that cut over the left eye of Katayev, has it affected his vision? Is that maybe the reason why he's not seeing these right hands come over the top? Or is it more just a technical flaw? Because these rights from Margarian are landing at an alarming rate. Another one, and you hear the corner of Margarian erupt. This main event has turned into a terrific fight. These last 4 or 5 rounds have been excellent, excellent stuff. And these are the kinds of fights that you could get even from prospects when you match them well. When you match them evenly. Win or lose, this is going to be a fight that Katayev learns from. Oh, they trade right hands in the center of the ring. Both men really going for it here in the 10th round. Blood streaming down the face of Katayev. He's been wiping it away with that left glove. Final 10 seconds. high drama in our main event from Moscow.
Видел, я сбоку как шел. Надо было бить его просто, и все. Без сомнения.
Let's look back at what was a terrific 10th round. Both men landing some heavy, heavy shots. Tayev looking the worse for wear. Again, he probably threw more punches in this fight. He's sporting a cut. And the way a fighter looks at the end of the fight shouldn't be an indicator of who won or lost. And neither necessarily is their body language. When you looked in the corners, it was Margarian who looked excited. Tayev, maybe emotionally neutral, but again, that may just be due to expectations. I think we would all agree that Margarian outperformed expectations here tonight. Katayev didn't dominate in the way that maybe his handlers would have hoped. But it all comes down to what the judges saw. Looks like we are ready to find out. Let's send it down to our ring announcer with the judge's decision.
По завершении этого боя обращаемся к судейским запискам. Судья номер 1. 96-95. Маргарян. Судья номер 2. 96-94. Хатаев. Судья номер 3. 96-94. Раздельным решением судей одержал победу. Завоевал титул чемпиона WBA Азия в среднем весе и остался непобежденным Шамиль Хатаев.
So Shamil Katayev, with a look of relief on his face, escapes with a split decision win. Boy, that was close. We don't have the scorecards immediately available. Obviously, you know that one judge scored it for Gracia Margarian, which is a perfectly defensible scorecard. I could see it going the other way again as you're calling a fight, especially by yourself, is a little bit difficult to score at the same time. But I would have to say that that one was as close as it gets, and you see the look on the face of Shamil Katayev, maybe a little bit disappointed in his performance, but he got the result that he needed at the end of the day, and Katayev now improves to 5-0, and the 24-year-old will go back to the gym and march forward. But what a performance from the underdog, Gracia Margarian, coming off a 2-year layoff to push a Russian national champion to the absolute brink. What a terrific main event, and what an exciting night of fights altogether, presented by Shamo Boxing Promotions here live on the Salida Promotions YouTube page. We hope to continue bringing quality international boxing live and free to you, the hardcore boxing fans all across the world. We thank everyone for tuning in. I'm Corey Erdman. So long, and we'll see you at the fights.
Выходит сразу направо. Да, прям сразу направо. Вот так уже подставки будет. Здесь как его, здесь оставил. Один строить. Он уже поздняет. Сейчас разобьют. Вот надо не для операторов так